Welcome back, everybody. So in the last video, we set up our profile view. It's looking pretty good, and we're almost done with this section of the course. We have built the core screens in our app, the Explore, the Chats, the Profile. And in this video, we're going to build out our settings view. So when we click on the settings button, we get this screen to pop up. Let's go ahead and build that real quick. So we already have a settings view file. Let's right click and jump to the definition. Let's jump into it. And again, when you see this UI, you can immediately think this is going to be a list. So at the top here, let's add our first section. We can see the section is going to have headers. So let's do a section, and we will add the one with the header. Click enter. The header is going to say account, and then we will put our button here. This first button will just be text that says sign out. And I'll make this .any button, and we'll go highlight here and click enter. When I tap on this, we can see that this is selecting here, but this whole row is actually not selecting. So what we're going to do is just a little bit of a custom UI here. Instead of using the default, let's put sign out pressed as the action, and then let's remove the list row formatting. And then we can go and build our own custom formatting here. So the custom formatting, we're just going to do a frame, max width, infinity, alignment leading, just so that we can get the whole row to highlight when we select it. Let's give it some padding. So padding vertical of 12. Let's also give it padding horizontal of 16 so that the whole thing selects. And then lastly, let's give it just a background. Let's do our system background color. So color from UI color of dot system background. Great. We're going to reuse this UI here, so let's actually just make it a reusable modifier. Unlike our other view modifiers like the list row formatting and any button, I'm only going to use this modifier on this specific screen. So normally we've been putting these in our view file, our view plus ext, but for this one I'm just going to put it in the settings view itself. Let's put it up here real quick. We'll do a file private extension, so it's only going to be in this file. Let's extend view, and let's just say func row formatting. I don't need to be specific in the naming convention here because since it's only this file, I know it's going to be what row it's going to be. If this was going to be used across the whole app, I would want to be specific about what type of row this is. Let's return self with these modifiers, and this will return us some view. Let's just call .row formatting and delete our original button here. I'll copy this and I'll make one more button here. This one will say delete account. It's going to have a different action which we have not made yet, and it will also be a highlight button. We'll also remove the formatting, but let's just give this one a foreground style of red because it is delete. Because it is delete, I want the user to know that that's a very serious action. Let's go ahead and copy this and paste another one here, and this will be the purchases section. So later in the course, we're going to add purchases so the user can make a purchase. And if they do, I just want to put here that they are a premium or a free user. Let's put an HStack on the screen, HStack spacing of 8, open the brackets, and I will highlight this, Control I. Let's delete the second button. On the left, let's put text that says account status, colon, and then let's just say free for a second. Up here, let's put a quick at state private var is premium of type bool equals false. We're going to change this logic later when we actually make our purchase manager. So here let's reference if is premium, let's put premium, otherwise free. And then let's put this as true, premium. And then just so that the user knows if this is premium, they can actually click it and manage their subscription. So let's just here add a quick little if is premium, open the brackets, text, let's put manage. And I'll put a spacer here with a minimum length of 0 to push it all the way to the right side. To make this manage, that little blue badge that we had in our chat row cell view, we created this little badge here, this little blue. Let's go ahead and reuse some of this code. So I'm going to basically just cut all of this. And let's go to our modifier for the call to action button. And let's just paste in another function here called badge button. And then let's return some view. These aren't really buttons, so maybe we should not use the word button inside, but I'll think about refactoring that later. Let's put the badge button on the screen, badge button, and then let's go to our settings view, and let's make this a badge button as well. That looks cool. We're going to do one more section here, so I'm going to copy this section, paste it down here. This last section will be the application section. So when I build apps, I like to just put a little bit of metadata for the user, but also for us. So if a user emails in and says they have a problem with the app or something, I can ask them to go look at this application section, tell me what version they're on. We're also going to log their version and their build number into our analytics services later. So we should have that information, but it doesn't hurt to also just throw this somewhere in settings somewhere. We're going to use another HStack for this one. This time, let's put on the left, we're just going to write version. And then on the right, we'll have a text that says 1.0 for now. We'll make this a foreground style of secondary so that it is gray, grayed out. I will copy this row. This is not a button, so I'll just delete that. And actually, we could delete the sign out pressed on the account status. All right, let's copy that. Let's paste another one. This one will be build number. And let's give this a build number of 3 just to match the mock for a second. And lastly, we're going to put one more. This will just be a text, so I'll cut this and I'll paste it here. Let's see. And this one will say contact us. And I'm going to actually make this foreground style of .blue so that it looks like a link to the user. I know it's our accent color here, but the accent color I think is too similar to our delete account button. Let's go with blue link. People generally know that blue means it's a link. Let's make this one any button with the highlight option, and we'll add in the business logic for the button click later. This looks pretty good. Let's clean it up real quick. This purchases button, we only want to manage if the user is premium. So it's the only time this manage button is going to appear. So if the user is not premium, let's disable this click. So down here, we'll just do .disabled. And let's add in here is premium. Or let's actually do not is premium. So if the user is premium, we should be clickable. But if the user is not, we'll make this false, then it should not be clickable. Great. Let's clean this up. I'm going to cut this section, move down to the bottom, and I will call this a private var account section of type some view. Let's cut our other section, purchase section, private var purchase section, type some view, and let's also get our application section, move it down here, private var application section of type some view. Let's put these on the screen. So we have our account section, we have our purchase section, and we have our application section. What are we missing from this screen? The footer down here. Let's jump to the application section, and there should be a footer. So I think we can add a footer here as well. And we'll put text that says created by Swiftful Thinking. You guys can put in your own name here or your company. Let's do a line break, and then we'll say learn more at www.swiftful-thinking.com. All right, let's give this a little bit of a line break between them. So baseline offset of 6, so it just spaces out a little bit. And it's looking pretty good. The next thing I want to do is actually get the actual version number for the version and for the build number. And to save ourselves some time, I actually made a package that we're going to use. So I will link this package below. You guys can just copy and paste the URL here. This is just a utilities package, and I'll show you what it actually is in 1 second. Let's go ahead and file, add package dependencies. Let's paste in the URL here. Let's do 1 up to less than 2. We can see the docs here. The docs are pretty simple. We're just going to import the package, and then we can access utilities dot and get all this extra metadata from our app. Let's go ahead and add the package. I will add it to our target. Go ahead and add package. And we're going to use these utilities in a whole bunch of files, but I don't want to have to import this package in a whole bunch of files. So what I'm going to do is actually, we have a utilities folder already with our constants. Let's create another file here, and let's call the file utilities. Utilities. In here, we'll import Swiftful utilities, and then we'll create a type alias called utilities, which is equal to the swiftfulthinking.utilities type. So normally in your package, you can just make your own utilities file, but we're just going to import from this package so that we don't spend time building out our own. If I jump to the definition of this, I can see that it's literally just a struct, and it has convenience methods for just a whole bunch of utility information. So the app version, the build number, and you guys can check this out on your own. It's a whole bunch of utilities. Is iPad, is iPhone, the system name, there's the battery level, so we get some information on whether or not the phone is charging, and whether or not the user's in portrait mode. We have some stuff about low power enabled, system uptime, so the amount of time since the system was last booted, the current country the user's in, the currency symbol, the currency code, the user time zone, the model identifier, so we can figure out if they're on an iPhone 12 or something. And then probably the most important here, we can figure out if the current build is through test flight, or if they're a dev user, or if they're a prod user. A prod user being a user that downloaded our app through the actual App Store and not through Test Flight or App Store Connect. So just a bunch of convenient stuff for you guys. You guys can use it if you want. I usually just import this in all of my projects. If you don't want the dependency, you could also just copy this file and then just paste it into our utilities here. And we're making a type alias so that we can now access utilities in all of our other files. If we didn't do this, we would have to import Swiftful utilities in all the files, and that gets pretty annoying. But now that we did this, we can just access utilities without having to import it every time. Let's Command Shift O. Let's jump into our settings view. And the version number here, we're going to delete this. Let's call utilities.app version. And it's optional, so otherwise we'll just put a blank string. And then let's also do for the build number, we'll do utilities.build number, otherwise blank string. Great. And that's looking good. The last thing that we're going to do here before we wrap up this video is in our app, we're actually going to allow users to get into our app without creating an account. So some apps require you to sign in with Google, sign in with Apple, and then access the app. But we're going to build this purposely so that the user can get into the app without signing up. And then once they're in the app, we might ask them to create an account as an option. It will be up to the user. I would generally say this is the preferred approach. Even the Apple Human Interface Guidelines, I believe, says that this is the better approach, because you'll find when you build a lot of apps that asking users to sign up is usually a big point of drop off. People don't want to sign up for things. People don't want to give their email. So if you don't have them sign up and you just let them use their app, usually it's a better user experience. Some companies obviously aren't going to let that slide. But since we're building our own app, I think it's a good idea. Let users use the app without signing up. Because at the end of the day, I really just care about whether or not the user is making a purchase, whether they're going to pay me for the app. I don't really care about whether or not they want to sign up with Google or Apple. But if they get into our settings screen and they have not created an account yet, well, there's not really an account. So we're going to change this button where if they don't have an account, we'll ask them to create an account instead, because there really is nothing to sign out of. Let's create another state here, and we'll just do is anonymous user. And we're going to obviously change this when we actually add our authentication logic. But we'll say here, if is anonymous user, else. So if they're not anonymous, we'll let them sign out. If they are anonymous, let's just change a button that says save and back up account. Let's put anonymous as true, and we'll change on sign out pressed. So maybe a little incentive that the user will realize that if they want to use this on another device, for example, they're going to have to create an account so that they can log into that account on another device. I'm going to go ahead and add a method for this. So just like on sign out pressed, let's create a func on, let's say on create account pressed. And we'll open the brackets here. Come back up. Let's make sure this is on create account pressed. And then we are going to add a sheet to display the create account screen. So we'll add a .sheet, and let's do another state here, show create account view, type bool equals false. Let's bind to it. In the content, let's just do text create account screen. Let's go to our on create account pressed button, and then we'll say show create account view equals true. See if it works. Beautiful. Let's go and create this screen real quick, and we're just going to make a very simple create account screen. I'll open the navigator. In our core section, we have all of our screens, and let's create one more new folder. Right click a new folder. Let's call this create account. In there, we'll right click and create a new file from template, a SwiftUI view, create account view. Click create. I'm going to move kind of fast here. Let's make a VStack with spacing of 24. Open the brackets. At the top, we're going to have another VStack, and we'll option enter to get the alignment. We'll go leading, spacing of 8. Let's put text here that says create account with a question mark. Another text that says, let's give the user a little bit of data. Maybe don't lose your data. Connect to an SSO provider to save your account. Great. I will give this a font of large headline and the subtitle a font of, we'll just do body, the default font, body. Let's do font weight of semi-bold to make it a little bit thicker. And let's go ahead and push these to the left edge. So we'll go frame, max width, infinity, alignment, leading. Around the entire thing, let's add some spacing from the edge of the device. So we'll go padding. Let's do 16. I want to push it to the top of the screen, so we'll put a spacer at the bottom. And then I just want to push it down a little bit from the top. So we'll go padding from the top edge. We'll do an extra 40. So it pushes off the edge there. And we're actually going to display this through a sheet. So it's not going to go to the very top of the device. It'll kind of just pop up like this. Lastly, I want to put the sign in with Apple button on the screen. So we're just going to add SSO for Apple in this course. On my YouTube channel, I've already covered how to do Apple and Google with Firebase. But when we sign up with Apple, we actually need a very specific UI for the sign in with Apple button. There's a version of this that comes from the Authentication Services Framework, and we're going to implement that right now. So attached to this video, I will actually just post the file for the sign in with Apple button. There's not really much for us to actually learn in creating it. So you can just copy the code from that file. And let's jump into our components section. In our reusable components section, let's add another folder here. Let's just call this buttons. So pre-made buttons that we might reuse on different screens. Let's create a new file here, a new empty file, and I'm just going to call this sign in with Apple button view. Let's go ahead and paste in the code from that file. You can also type this out if you want. Basically, this is a UIKit button that we get from the Authentication Services Framework, and then we are wrapping it in a view representable to convert it into SwiftUI. And this actually looks a little funky. What I'm going to do is change the preview here to, let's delete this. We don't need the background. We don't need the red color. Let's go ahead. Oh, there's a couple different variations. We're going to use the black version. It's the most common. And let's do the corner radius of 10. And maybe we could do sign in. We can do continue. This is the default button that Apple wants us to use. Just a quick note, if you don't use the actual sign in with Apple button, you need to build the button to be exactly the same. Otherwise, Apple will not approve your app. They're very strict to follow these human interface guidelines for this button. But now that we have this button, let's go ahead and use it in our app. I'm just going to actually copy the code right from here. Let's jump into our create account view and let's paste it underneath our text. We'll do height of 55. Let's make it sign in. I think that's just the most common. And our screen looks pretty good. We're going to make this a button, so let's do any button. And let's use the .press style for this so that it presses in a little bit. We're not going to actually add the logic for signing in yet, but this is our very simple create account screen. Let's go ahead and display this from our settings view. In our settings view, we have this sheet. Let's add a create account view here. So it should pop up as a sheet now. And I actually want to make it a half sheet because we don't need this whole screen. It's just a little bit of data. So let's go ahead here and add the presentation detents, and we will make this .media, which is about a half screen sheet. That looks great. Let's wrap up this video with one other location where we're going to display this screen. So I'm going to open up, let's Command Shift O and jump back to our welcome view. Way back when we built the welcome view, and in the welcome view at the bottom, we already have an account, sign in. So let's display the same sheet when we click sign in. So I'm going to go back and let's copy this sheet, and I'm just going to paste it inside. Let's paste it on the welcome view as well. Let's put a Boolean. Let's copy the Boolean from the top of the screen here. Show create account view. Paste it up here. Let's go down to where that text is on tap gesture. Let's create a private func. Let's say on sign in pressed. And we'll say show create account view equals true. And actually, it shouldn't really be the create account view now. It should be the show sign in view of type bool. Let's bind to that. And let's change this. Let's call sign in pressed. Let's see if it works. It looks like it's working. But the last thing I want to do here is actually, if the user is clicking it on this screen, they should be signing into an account. So they're not really creating a new account. Let's go ahead and customize the text on this screen so that we can reuse it for different implementations. Let's jump back into our create account view. And let's pass in a title of type string. And I'll give the default text what we had before, create account. And let's also do a subtitle of type string. And we'll give it a default text that we had before. Pass in the subtitle here. Great. And now we should be able to use this initializer. So let's go back to our code. And then from our create account view, we should now option enter, triple click, control M. Let's go ahead and make the title here say sign in, and the subtitle connect to an existing account. Let's go ahead and sign in, and that looks great. I will finish the video by just jumping back to our settings view, and let's take our row formatting because it's not that important to actually see this every time I go into this file. Let's cut it and let's just move it down to the bottom of the file. I will put it maybe right above the preview. That looks great. And now we have our settings screen. I'm going to go ahead and click and build and run this to a simulator quick. Let's just wrap up this module to look at what we have done so far. We have moved pretty quickly and we've built a lot of screens. So I just want to just recap what we've been building before we move on to the next section. I think you should give yourself a pat on the back if you made it this far. We have been moving pretty quickly. And honestly, I think there is definitely some technique here of keeping our views really reusable, but also keeping our code really simple. We've written a lot of code, but it's been relatively easy in terms of a lot of primitive types, lots of basic state, a lot of basic if-else statements. And it's looking good so far. So we have our image, get started. We can go ahead and create an account. Let's click the blue color, blue setup complete. We should now go back into our app. Beautiful. And we have our carousel working, which is looking good. It is clickable. We have a paging scroll view here as well, and our bottom popular section. We have our chats, which have a nice little loading UI. And then we have our profile screen, which also has a cool loading UI. Obviously, this loading is way longer than it's going to be in the real app, hopefully. We're kind of just stress testing it as we create this mock experience. We haven't built the create avatar screen yet, but the settings screen we have built, and this is looking great. Let's click save and backup account. And looks, our create account screen is appearing. The last thing we'll do is turn anonymous user to false for a second. Let's go ahead and run the app one more time. We'll jump back to our settings screen, and we're just going to make sure that the sign out button is still working. And this button also works, sign in. Great. All right, that's it for this video. Let's wrap up by Option Command C. Let's make this a feature, and we'll say settings view and create account view. Let's stage it, let's commit it, let's push it up to GitHub, and I will see you guys in the next video.